Welcome to the studio. You're listening to Willow Waves, a student-produced podcast where kindergarten through 6th graders explore interests, promote solutions to global concerns, and communicate about everything related to our social and emotional learning.
We aim to amplify voices, share knowledge, and encourage conversations. Visit us at willowspringses.fcps.edu to learn more and subscribe.
Join us as we explore our diverse and dynamic world of elementary education.
On this episode, we will be taking you all the way to Juneau, Alaska.
Juneau, Alaska is filled with giant glaciers.
But soon they won't be there anymore.
In Antarctica, 2 major glaciers are melting rapidly.
They haven't melted this fast in 5,500 years.
If we don't do anything about it, it could seriously affect our planet.
Glaciers not only will shift sea levels, but the Earth itself.
It will increase coastal flooding and cause typhoons, which are far worse than hurricanes.
Sea levels will rise about 230 feet.
Not to mention the thousands of animals that will die because of habitat loss.
Polar bears, penguins, and more depend on icebergs and glaciers.
Coming up next is an interview with Annie Boucher, a glacier expert who will tell us a little bit more about the melting glaciers and how we can help.
We have a couple questions for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
What made you interested in glaciers?
That is a good question. I have always been fascinated by snow, and I don't know why. There's something inside me, I guess. I studied geology in college. That led me kind of to think about how, there's so many different pieces of geology. Like we talk about the deep earth and we talk about the surface of the earth. Then I realized that we could also talk about glaciers on top of the earth. I've always loved spending time in the mountains, and that was one of the things that I really liked about studying geology, was getting to have class outside and going on really long field trips. And that led me to glaciers after college and figuring out that there was science to be done, and also we got to go skiing, which was really fun, and spend time in the mountains, and
I
kind
love
of
the
brings
snow.
all of my favorite things together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ski a lot, so that's really
Yeah?
Yeah, I like skiing.
Nice.
That's really fun. What made you decide to go down this career path?
That's another really good question. I went to JERP as a student in 2012. JERP is the Juneau Icefield Research Program. And kind of immediately upon getting to Alaska, I knew that I wanted to be there and that I had found kind of something that I could focus a lot of my time and energy on. I had a really good time as a student. I made some fantastic friends who are still some of my best friends. I live on the ice field for 2 months, which is just this crazy place. There are glaciers everywhere. There are very few plants or animals. And we live in these old field camps that have been being built for 75 years. And you kind of just feel like you're living in a museum, but you're also working in the museum and it's still alive. And I loved it. So when I finished, I applied to go back as field staff, and I spent a few summers in the field with students, teaching them safety skills and helping keep camps organized. And then a job came up at JERP that was year-round, helping organize the rest of it. And I needed a job, and I love the program. And so now I'm learning a lot about how we run nonprofits and what it means to run a program like JERP. I don't know when I knew I wanted to do it, but I love doing it. And it's kind of every step along the way. It just felt like the right move to do next.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah, we really liked the program. When we saw it, we were like, we really want to do that. But
Yeah, well, when are you guys turning 17? Gotta be soon.
7 years.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I'll still be there.
What was your favorite part of your job?
There's a moment, it happens every summer, and we take students and we spend the first 2 weeks of the program doing a lot of learning new skills. For some people, it's the first time they've ever seen snow. For a lot of people, it's the first time they've ever been on skis or slept outside or done anything like we do at JERP. And it's a really fun 2 weeks, but it's tiring. And every day the staff kind of have to be leading the students through the day. And then somewhere around week 3, there's a moment when the students realize that they don't need to be led anymore and that they can actually be in charge of their own day to some extent. And they start taking care of each other instead of expecting the staff to teach them each new skill. And that is my favorite day of the summer, hands down. It's the best part of the whole year because it really starts to feel like we're all one big team. And I feel like we've taught our students so much, and now they get a chance to practice their skills and to continue learning new skills, but also to take more responsibility for our summer together.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah. Tell us about the Juneau Icefield Research Program.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Juneau Icefield Research Program is a field course. So it's a class that happens outside. It's a summer program, so it happens June through August. And our mission is to train and teach mostly earth science students about glacier systems. So we take 32 college students on a 2-month ski trip from one side of the Juneau Icefield to the other side. And along the way, we stay at permanent field camps. Our program started in the 1940s, so some of these buildings are pretty old. We have 15 staff that go along to teach safety skills and help fix buildings and keep things organized. And then we have faculty that fly in every 2 weeks to teach our students the academic curriculum. So over the course of the summer, we have somewhere between 90 and 115 people come through the program. We do research. Our students take a lot of workshops and lessons and field trips in different parts of glacier systems. So sometimes they talk about snow accumulation, how glaciers grow and shrink. Sometimes they talk about glacier flow, like how the ice actually moves downhill. Sometimes they're talking about what plants and animals live near the glacier or on top of the glacier. And sometimes they talk about the rocks underneath the glaciers and how the glaciers shape the bedrock. And then a lot of times they talk about how we talk about science to people who aren't scientists, which is science communication. And so that's a lot of how we weave art into the curriculum and writing and podcasting and telling stories and all kinds of stuff to help translate the data into something that is more accessible to people who aren't scientists. So that's kind of JERP in a nutshell. It's a bunch of people who really like to spend time in the mountains and who really like to teach students. Massive effort to bring 30 students out to the glacier and to teach them as much as we possibly can in 8 weeks.
The ski trip sounds really fun. I really like how they go through the thing.
It's like such a fun
Wild.
place.
Yeah.
So cool. We ski uphill, we ski downhill. Sometimes we ski through crevasse fields where the glacier opens up into these cracks, and they're pretty dangerous. So we put everybody on a rope team. So in case one person falls in, everybody else can catch them. Which, yeah, if you've ever tried skiing, if you can imagine trying to ski tied to somebody else, and then also you're tied to 3 other people.
Yeah, I'm not a good skier. I don't know how I'd handle that.
It can be very frustrating. But it lets us go to some cool places.
Yeah.
Otherwise we wouldn't get to go to.
What steps is your organization taking to prepare for when the ice caps melt?
That's a good question. They are melting already, yeah? So our buildings have been in the same place since the 1940s and 50s, and you can already see how the glaciers are melting on the ice field, and changing. One of our camps is getting kind of hard to get to because our camps are built on these rocky mountaintops that stick out from the glacier. So the rock isn't moving, but the glacier is shrinking. It's getting lower. And one of our camps has this hill from the glacier up to the camp. And the hill is getting steeper and steeper and steeper. It's really tough. I'm just trying to play it by ear a little bit. Nobody really knows what's about to happen. We know that the glaciers are shrinking. We know that on average, the global temperature is getting warmer, but we don't know how that's going to happen locally. So some places, that means it gets colder. Sometimes, some places it means it gets a lot warmer. Some places that means that there's less snow. Some places that means that there's more snow. And the system is so complicated that it's really hard to predict exactly what's going to happen in any one place. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? So, like in Juneau, we talk a lot globally about sea level rising, right? And, we're melting the ice caps. You guys talked about this, and you're pouring more water into the ocean. And so the sea level is kind of creeping up, right? So if you have land, the sea level is coming up. If you live on the land, maybe there's going to be more flooding. But in Juneau, this is wild. The glaciers that used to be there 10,000 years ago weighed the crust down. And the glaciers are melting, not just because of climate change, but also because the last ice age ended. And the land is actually rising. It's like a raft in a lake. If you had a bunch of people standing on a raft and then they all jumped off, the raft would kind of go up a little bit. So the land is actually popping up a little bit. It's called isostatic rebound. And that means that in Juneau specifically, sea level is actually going down. Even though the glaciers are melting and there's more ocean water and sea level rise is happening in other places, in Juneau, it's actually like we're getting more land come up out of the ocean.
That's interesting.
Super weird.
Yeah.
That's really sad how the ice glaciers are like melting and stuff like that.
Super sad.
Yeah.
It's super, super sad. Yeah. So, you guys asked what steps is my organization taking to prepare?
Yeah.
We are just trying to stay nimble because we don't know exactly what's going to happen. And we don't know exactly how long we're going to be able to keep working where we're working.
Okay.
That seems
Yeah.
scary. I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. What is going to happen next is a huge question.
Besides trying to cut the CO2 emissions, is there anything else that we can do to help save the glaciers?
I think cutting CO2 is a big one. We're talking a lot about switching from fossil fuels to renewable energy. That's fantastic. Electric cars, great. I think we need more comprehensive policy to address climate change. And I think one of the toughest things for me to watch as somebody who does more or less understand climate change is watching the government kind of stall and argue about whether it's happening. Should we do anything about it? Whose fault is it? It is happening and we need to do something about it. And I'm not a policy expert. I don't know exactly, we talk a lot about carbon tax. Is that a good idea? Is it a bad idea? I don't know enough about it to say. But we need to do something because doing nothing is kind of a bummer and it's just going to make it worse.
Yeah.
I think we need to be aware that it's a problem that's confronting the whole world all at once. And that's going to mean that people need to move around to find somewhere better to live, where the weather is better, where there's food. And I worry that everybody deciding that we're closing our borders and we're going to just take care of ourselves doesn't really make sense because it's kind of everybody's problem. And, does that make sense?
Yeah, that seems frustrating that the government isn't doing anything.
Yeah.
They're doing some things.
Yeah.
But to me, it feels like an emergency, and it doesn't feel like the government feels like it's an emergency.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be really hard if like people have to like leave because of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that they're not like pushing it forward and just pushing it back.
Yeah. And these are tough questions, people that live near the coast. Like I grew up in New York City, and there's a lot of flooding in New York City that didn't used to happen before, that now is happening during big hurricanes like Hurricane Sandy. And it's hard to know how to deal with that. Like that's a big problem that's going to take a lot of really smart people working on it to come up with a solution that's fair and means that everybody still has somewhere to live, and nobody's losing their house into the ocean. But not doing anything about it is not making it better.
Yeah. That seems like a really tough problem to solve.
Yeah.
What will happen in 5 to 10 years if we don't slow climate change down?
I think we're seeing it's going to be kind of similar to what's been happening for the last 5 years. So I don't, and I'm not a climate scientist, so I don't have really good answers for this, but I would imagine that we can expect to see more highly variable weather. So more weather during the summer that's unusual, like really hot or really rainy or really dry or really cold. And then more weather during the winter that's also unusual. So really big hurricanes, really big snowstorms, really cold times when in places where we don't usually expect to see really cold branches of weather. I live in upstate New York now, kind of near Montreal, and we had a very warm winter this year.
Yeah, same
where
with
it
us.
was mostly warm. Yeah, are you guys having the same thing?
We only got like 2 snow days.
Yeah,
And
really
still
got
had
any.
to go to school.
Yeah, they didn't even stick to the floor.
Yeah.
It's such a bummer, you know?
Yeah.
Snow days are the best.
They are.
And all the ski places like closed really early, so like we had to go all the way to Colorado just to ski.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of ski places like that aren't going to be able to open as much. So it's going to be hard to keep them open at all if you're not making money running them. And, we're getting these huge snowstorms out in California, huge snow in the Sierra and in the Rockies, and super warm on the East Coast. But last winter, it was really cold here, and they got very little snow, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just, instead of having like stable weather, I think we're going to start seeing more extremes of weather, kind of in all different directions.
Because we're in Northern Virginia, so it's like not that cold.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Like there was like 80-degree day in the winter, and it was like crazy.
Yeah. Like, ugh.
What advice would you give to young people to help make a difference in climate change?
Ooh, this is also a really good question. I think the best advice I can give you is, first of all, to pay attention to where you live, right? You all are the experts in Northern Virginia. And the best way that we can build resilience as a country and as a world is to make sure that our communities are really strong. So getting involved with stuff that's happening locally, like Alaska is cool. And it's hard not to be excited about Alaska. Alaska it's exciting, but it's also important to know what's happening where you live. And to study science and science policy, think about like all the different things you could do after you graduate high school, in college or not in college and after, to get involved and help solve these problems. We're gonna have so many puzzles to solve in the next 30 years. And you guys are gonna be part of solving them.
Yeah.
I wish I'd taken more math class in high school, honestly. I know that's not a popular answer.
Yeah, I see a lot of younger people doing like a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm like, I really want to make a difference to the world because it's like,
Yeah. And these are problems that the adults don't have the answer to. Like that is kind of scary. And I still kind of expect, I mean, I'm 34, I still kind of expect my parents to have the answers. They don't. And that, it can be a little intimidating to think about, but it also means that we have so much room to invent new answers and to come up with new things that we haven't tried yet. And that is going to be a really exciting thing to be a part of.
Yeah. I always like look up to my parents when I don't know what to do. Like this, you can't really ask them.
Yeah, but I think we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
I really, really do.
So.
Yeah. What are you guys learning about in school with climate change?
With climate change, so each person gets like their own.
They get to pick
what they want to do. So we chose like glaciers and climate change because we think it's like really important, and like all the disasters that could happen, and like you know how important like climate change is and how bad it is. But
we're pairing with some partners in Romania, I believe. Yeah. And we're gonna like we're gonna partner with them kind of and like try to help fix the problems.
Yeah. And there's like some people did like ocean pollution or
electric
maybe,
buses.
Like, electric buses or cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we chose this. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Are you guys, I'm trying to think about, are you guys on, you can't be on social media yet, huh?
No, not yet.
Really.
No. Okay. Well, maybe I will send your teacher, Ms. Williams, some links where you guys can look at some pictures of our trip this summer, because we are going to have a fantastic time. We're going to go skiing. The weather's probably going to be horrible.
Yeah.
It's going to be really funny, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And we have some really cool things happening this summer. Not only are we teaching all of our students about glaciers, which is my favorite thing, but also we have a bunch of NASA scientists coming up to test an ice drill that they want to send to Europa someday.
Whoa!
Wild, right? Yeah.
That's wild.
So there's going to be a lot of fun things happening on the ice field, and it would be really fun if you guys could see some pictures of it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Have a really good rest of your day, and
Thank you.
shoot me any questions. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It was really good to meet you.
Thanks. Bye. Wow, thank you for this interview. It is very clear that humans are the problem.
If we don't take action, we're going to have to deal with coastal flooding because of rising sea levels.
The UN predicts that by the year 2030, an estimated 132 million people will be affected by coastal flooding.
But the good news is that humans are also the solution. We need a lower CO2 emission, but also think outside the box for new ideas.
One idea that came out of Purdue University has to do with white paint.
Professor Ron and his students created the whitest paint that has barium sulfite and is cool to the touch.
If less than 1% of the planet was covered in the whitest paint, it would cool our Earth and possibly stop the often use of air conditioning.
Thanks for tuning in to Willow Waves. We hope you learned something new.
Catch the Glacier Girls in a following episode. The Glacier Girls Strike Back.
There we talk about solutions to help our Earth and Professor Ron's paint furthermore.